Hey Caesar, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm really
Good.
excited to talk to you about all you're on like two pretty major tours, actually three. One right now,
Yes.
and then you've got a couple coming up. So we're going to talk all about that. And actually, let's just start there. So
Sure.
I know you from Benatar-Giraldo, so Pat Benatar Neil Giraldo.
Yes.
And you're currently on, at least as of the recording of this episode, you are on tour with them for their spring tour with the Vindies. Also
Yes.
amazing. And I did talk to Jackie a
Amazing.
few weeks ago. So
Nice.
yeah, so folks at home can watch that and should. But yeah, so you're on that tour right now, and then you've got coming up in the fall, you're going to be on tour with them again when they're co-headlining with Bryan Adams. And then we're also
Yes.
going to talk about Taylor Dayne, who you've toured with quite a bit. But
Absolutely.
let's start with Benatar-Giraldo. How did you get that gig?
Very interesting.
Okay.
So, yes, I am playing also with Taylor Dayne, and we were doing a show. Actually, they were doing, believe it was some sort of, well, actually, it was a co-headlining show in Long Island,
Hmm.
and I was playing with Taylor at the time, and we were opening, and from the now this is what I've been told by Spider and of course a couple of the other members of the organization when they saw me play. And listen, for me this is the most unbelievable story, incredible story probably of my career.
Mhm.
um we were doing our thing, performing, opening up and stuff like that, and from what I understand, Spider heard me play and was like, I gotta have that guy.
That's amazing.
Listen, not my words, his words, their words, to God's ears. And I got a call, asking if I would be interested in perhaps doing some recording with him. And of course, my response was absolutely.
Yeah.
you know, and so a couple of weeks went by, maybe a month or so, and I got another phone call and was asked, well, hey, by the way, also, would you be interested in doing some touring with him and Pat? And my response, even more so, was like, are you kidding me? Absolutely, yes.
Who
So
in their right mind would say no to that?
listen, so that was incredible in itself. And being that I hadn't, met them or anything, I mean, I spoke briefly with him at the show that day,
Okay.
but nothing, like, business wise or anything like that. But I was just in awe, over them at the time, anyways. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so when I got the call to come out to LA, I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, cool. This is like a, sort of an audition, tryout kind of situation. Yeah, of course I'm interested, but whatever. And come to find out, before I even got there, I was already hired. It was just a matter
That's
of
amazing.
super amazing. It was just a matter of getting in and locking in and just kind of, vibing each other. And I was just blown away with the reception, the love that I got, coming in. I was a nervous wreck, by the way. But it was just such a super experience. That whole, because I was out there for like maybe 3 or 4 days.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, and the entire time it was just nothing but love, and the vibe was just incredible.
Uh,
So
And that's such a beautiful story, but not at all surprising because I think anybody who is a fan of either of theirs or knows them knows that they're just the most down to earth, like nice
oh,
people. Like they're known for that.
absolutely, absolutely, hands down. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So in those days that where was it more just getting to know each other and hang out and just talk out tour details, or did you get to do some of that recording that Neil had originally asked you about?
So another recording. At the time, no tour details or anything like that. Just that they
Oh,
were about to embark on that tour of last year.
got
Um,
you.
but more so, just not even arrangements, but just going over this, running through the songs. Of course, I had an idea of what songs we would be playing. So
Mhm.
of course I put my ear to it, because again,
Yeah,
I'm thinking it's, an audition, so to speak. So
right.
let me learn, let me learn at least the arrangements that they were doing at the time being on tour, because a lot of the songs I already knew because I was a fan anyway,
Right.
but just the arrangements, taking a listen at that and stuff like that and trying to make sure I had that. And it was so really not even about that, but just playing together, like as if we were just coming together as a garage band and just
I
jamming
love
out. And it
that.
was so, listen, it was so much fun,
Yeah.
very different from what I expected, because I thought it
Yeah.
would be more, uniformed, more,
Like formal and like we're
yeah,
gonna sit
kind
and
of,
watch
kind of that.
you.
And it was just so not that. It was just real relaxed. And yeah, it was just great. Great
That's amazing.
experience.
That is really incredible. And as you mentioned, last year was the first tour. It was their summer tour of
Correct.
2024 is the first time you were with them. And then
Correct.
you are with them spring, this tour that's, like I said, as of the recording of this interview, spring 2025, and then in fall with Bryan Adams. And we'll mention this again
Yes.
and we'll have it all below. But that's amazing.
Of
Like
course.
they literally just saw you right on stage before they went
Yeah.
on stage, and that's, but you do have an incredible presence. I mean, like the way you play is amazing, but you exude joy on stage. So I am not
Oh
at all
wow.
surprised that like he was like, I need that guy on stage with me as
Wow.
well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you. Thank you.
absolutely. Now, did you get to meet Mick Mahan that day as well?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And did you guys
Yes.
lock in right away?
Oh gosh. Like that guy is like my like we are so really good friends. Like
Oh,
even
I love
like Spider and making myself, like it's really a brotherhood thing, really. You know what I mean? Not
it.
just musically, but we
Mhm.
connect so well. You know what I mean? And that in itself is just amazing. I mean, I've been blessed to be able to work with artists and other musicians where that connection was like that. Not so much, a situation where it was like work or anything like that, but just an amazing experience every time, from the dressing room to the stage, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Just,
that's wonderful.
so that always makes it so much better, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, it's great. Great, 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 great guys, so
That's amazing.
yeah, I'm blessed.
So now, and we're going to go back to the Benatar-Giraldo thing, but how did you initially connect with Taylor Dayne, and how long actually have you been with her as
So
a
I've
drummer?
been with her since 2011.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So you've been with her for quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And how that came about, at the time I was out on tour with Joss Stone. And
Okay.
yeah, and another amazing artist. She's amazing. And a few of the musicians played with Taylor maybe a time or two.
Hmm.
And she was getting ready to go in and record her, I don't know which Satisfied album
Okay.
at the time. And not quite sure what year it was, but it had to be somewhere in, I'd say maybe 2000, somewhere between 2005 and 2007, because I was with Josh from 2004 until like 2007, into 2007. And she was getting ready to do some recording. And again, the recording thing, would I be interested in coming in? So I went in and recorded a couple of songs on that album with her. And and she loved it. Everything went great. We vibed out so well. And then my time with Josh, that whole thing, the tour thing ended, and I just kind of vibed out for a little bit, played with different artists, maybe one-offs here and there. And I got a call if I'd be interested in working with Taylor. And I was like, again, absolutely I will.
Again.
Yeah, you know
Yes.
what I mean? And the funny thing is, like, that crazy situation. There was no rehearsal before the first show at all. It was simply, I got the material, got the arrangements, and right to the stage. I think I met her, like actually had a conversation after the very first show.
You're kidding me.
I am not.
To me, that is so bizarre to be on tour with somebody and not meet them until after you've already played together.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was great again because I think the guitar player at the time was local with me in Miami, Fort Lauderdale,
Mm.
and so I felt very comfortable anyway because we had played together in local bands, at home around town, anyways.
Oh, okay, so this is
So
someone you know.
right,
You
right.
yeah.
And at the time, Taylor, as opposed to now, like she uses, of course, now one band, but at the time, she had like maybe an East Coast band and a West Coast band. Um, and so a lot of the guys that were in the East Coast band, I knew,
Okay.
already. So that portion of it felt very comfortable already anyway. But there was a definite sense of nervousness being the first time performing out, with her, and only seeing her with the recording that we had done maybe years prior, So, but
Okay.
in itself, it was still amazing, still great, and
That
I've
is
been
incredible.
from 2011 until present, we have been together, and it's just it's great, every time. Yeah.
That is an incredible story. And again, like I said, there's something about you that's really like infectious in that. So I'm not surprised that all these people are like, he's good.
Well, thank you so much for
Just
that.
call
I
him in.
do
Just call him
appreciate
in. He's good.
it.
So is Taylor your main? I mean, it sounds like Joss Stone may be on this list as well.
Yeah.
Is Taylor like the person you've worked with the longest, or maybe the
Yeah,
close?
absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. 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 So,
Who else have you supported like in a significant way, like the Benatars and the Daynes and the Joss Stones? Are there any other artists, or are those your three?
uh, yeah, those are probably the most, I'd say, like 5 years plus,
Right.
situations. Everything else has kind of been like a one off, maybe 2 dates here, maybe a couple of weeks, whatever, just sitting in, filling in for their drummer or, whoever it
Right.
is that, but nonetheless, great
They're your people.
experiences. Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, and it's again, like I said, it's still as fresh as it was day one. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. It. I was talking to a friend of mine, maybe at the beginning of this run, and the question was, "Do you like still get nervous? Whatever." And I've been doing this 30 years plus now, and I was like, yes. You know what I mean? Like,
Really?
oh God, yes. Like right before I mean, it's like clockwork, right before we go on stage, like I am a nervous wreck.
Oh, wow.
you
Oh,
know,
really? Oh, see, you would not know that. You would never know that. So let me ask you, do you have rituals that you do before you play a live performance? Is there something you do for yourself to get yourself, in the right headspace, or to try to alleviate some of that nervousness?
well, I say a little prayer and
Okay.
then I just breathe. I just breathe. Some there are times though, I will listen to, some music or whatever, and just kind of get me going. But then there are times when I'm like, I just need to just be still and just breathe and get through it. Usually, what I will say lately, the moment I sit down on the stage, it goes away.
Okay.
But the thing is, I never know if it's gonna go away like that. It's like
Right. You
I'm
don't know
like, oh
till you
God.
sit down.
you know, I'll peek out, and see, the crowd's, ready and going crazy and everything's happening, and I'm like, okay, you know, and we have a cue when it's time for me to go out, and so I'm there and I'm waiting on the cue, and I hear the cue. I mean, by this time I'm shaking like the leaf on the tree. It's crazy, and then I hear the cue, and then it goes away, and it's like showtime. That's okay, but yes, and that's with everyone. Every time that I'm on stage, whether it's doing something at home locally, or whatever the case may be. But I think it's because I have such a passion for what it is that I do, and I want to
Yeah.
always give my best. So I'm thinking about that. I'm like, okay, I really want this to be a great performance. You know what I mean? And that happens, and it's right up until I sit down on the drum seat, and there we go, off to the races. That's it.
Now, I'm going to talk mostly about Taylor and the Benatar-Giraldo thing because those guys I grew up with, and like I'm
Oh,
more
nice.
with the Jawstone. I totally know who they are, but
Yeah.
when you prepare for either of those tours, is it the same process for you as a drummer, or do you go in a little bit differently since Taylor tends to be like more of a pop, and whereas Benatar-Giraldo, they have the pop too, but they're more of really a rock band.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
your preparation as a drummer, from the playing perspective, do you prepare a little bit differently for both of those, or is it kind of the same process? And then what a little bit about the process.
So with this situation, with the Benatar situation, that was in itself just a completely different experience for me, which was wonderful. I mean, of course, at home, when I would do local things, of course, there's an element of all genres that you play,
Mhm.
but never per se like an entire rock genre or rock pop kind of situation. So that in itself was different, and from a playing perspective as well, because um, doing pop, or even R&B, pop or anything like that, drum sizes matter, you know,
Mhm.
and so I've always used, smaller toms, um, different cymbal sounds, my approach to playing, because it's very different.
Mhm.
And coming into this, I had to completely readjust. Bigger sizes, um, and with bigger sizes, you play differently,
Mhm.
and so I had to get used to that. Um, and with their original drummer, and listen, let me tell you,
Myron,
my oh god, Mr. Grumbacher. Listen, that guy, and I had a chance to meet him actually.
did you? Oh,
Yes, I
that's
saw.
amazing.
It's crazy
That was
because I was supposed to start with them in in May of last year, and I had a prior engagement with Taylor, and
Mhm.
but they were pretty much local. They were kind of in my neck of the woods, and I was actually able to go, and it was great because they had Myron.
Did they really?
Listen,
I didn't even know that Myron
li-
was with them recently.
listen. I went and I got a chance to actually experience this guy up close and personal. Not only is he an amazing musician, but just an amazing guy all around. Got a chance to sit and talk with him, pick his brain for different ideas, being that I was coming in as the new
Mhm.
guy.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, it really, really helped me with my approach to, um, to this particular, gig. So not just hearing what he was doing on the album, but to understand his approach to, from his directly from his mouth, his approach, to the music. And it really helped me because, again, like I said, I hadn't until now done anything fully rock. I've played, you know, several genres of music, rock being included. Um, and but of course it
90
was in a
minutes
different
of rock is a little different.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely a different approach. And I would say, like I said, mainly having to adjust to the bigness of rock as opposed to you know um, doing pop or anything else like that. I come from a church background
Mhm.
anyway, so the transition from gospel to, let's just say, like an R&B or like a pop or even jazz even um, is a it's an easier transition
Mhm.
than with rock. With rock, like you gotta bring it. Like you gotta like really, you gotta really go in. And I will say, because they do a 90-minute show, and that 90 minutes you were there. It is from the word go all the
Yeah.
way until the last note, in Heartbreaker. And you are pumping. I'm telling you, you are going, and it's no easy breaks here. You know what I mean? So just just that transition alone has even I'd say advanced me even in my own personal plane, and just being able to, I guess, navigate through uh, the differences of genres, because it's not that I'm just now with Pat only, because even after this tour, before we go back out with Bryan, I'm back out with Taylor. So having to
Right.
make the transition, in styles is just amazing. I'm loving it. Like just every bit of the experience in this is just great. So I guess that answered your question.
Yes, it certainly does. Um, I imagine that every single person or band that you tour with has their own culture, their own, their own vibe.
Sure.
But have you found in your experiences, is it more of a person to person, band to band thing, or do you find that there's cultural differences in the way people hang out or the way people work together between different genres that you've played with?
I will say there is it's pretty much the same kind of, you know, maybe, let's see how can I put it, because in itself with Taylor, she doesn't do or hasn't done really a bus tour
Mhm.
per se, so everything is flight,
Mhm.
whatever. So you don't really get the chance to spend a lot of time, together per se, as you would on a bus. You know what I mean? Because it's listen, it's the bus ride, when you
Yes.
really get to, because it's like we're living, you know, together. You know what I mean? Whereas flights, you're together during the flight. When you're off the flight, you go to the hotel room. You may have some time to chill and kind of hang out and stuff like that, or you're doing your thing. You're whatever city you're in, and you're whatever. But on the bus, and some of these rides are like 10 hours plus.
Mhm.
Um, you really get to know each other, and you build a relationship, and you actually get to see, the differences in the cultures, or how people vibe per se. So with Taylor, and again, like I said, because those musicians, with Taylor, some of them I had played with, and we've had a chance to vibe and hang out and stuff like that. So that's one thing. But coming into this, where I knew no one,
Yeah.
you know, um, was an experience, and an amazing experience. I got to see firsthand how, from one organization to the next, the differences, and how, like, for the basics are pretty much the same, the management, the protocol, different things of that nature. But like, let me give you a little story. Like, I've never had in the other tours, uh what do you want, like meals after show, or different things of that nature, like little intricate things that I'm experiencing on this tour that I hadn't experienced in other tours. And it's like, wow. So this is how that, it goes. And, it's just very brand new, for
Mhm.
me. So just, I guess, in that self are just the differences, you know, but the basics of everything is pretty much the same. Even with Taylor, because I've heard experiences where the artists, they're usually, pretty separate. from the band. You have the band, then you have the artist. Um, but in both instances here, the relationship is so amazing. Like, it is literally family. It's family with Taylor. We hang out, we kick it, we get to chill, and the same thing. And I really thought, with Pat and Neil, that it would be a situation where I just only see them stage time,
Right.
but it is absolutely not that. We hang out, we talk about football, we talk about listen, when I tell you, like, it's like a brotherhood, like it's a family, it really is that. So I'd say in that it is very much the same. Very much the same. So it's
Oh.
great situation.
Have you ever had a bourbon with Neil? Because you know how he has his bourbon company. Have you ever had a bourbon with him?
So I don't drink,
Okay.
and that's the
Well, you know what? Let me show you something. I don't either, but I do own a bottle of this, and I'm not the one that drank that, by the way, because I'm just such a Neil fan, so I get
nice.
it. Although he's probably the one person I would have a drink with. I'd be like, "All right, I'll have a drink for you," but I
I
don't
get teased about it a lot.
do you?
I
I
do.
don't know if he even drinks that much.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, but he's
Yeah,
got
he
the bourbon
doesn't.
company, so
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, a fun story that I heard Neil tell, and I want to hear it from your perspective. So, he was sharing with a bunch of fans that he's got, all these pedals. He's a guitarist, so you have a pedal
Sure.
board and all that. But he's got a couple quirky ones, and there was one I couldn't tell how serious he was, but it was pretty hilarious, where he was talking about how he can control something on your drum kit or drum throne. So tell me about that.
So, okay. So I use a thumper on my seat, which is basically just a subwoofer on the seat. So when I kick the kick drum, I can kind of feel it because I'm on headphones or sometimes in ears. So I'm blocking out a lot of what's happening. So it gives me the feel effect of everything, right? And there was one time where I don't know how the volume knob on the thumper was kind of set higher than normal. So I kicked the kick drum and it literally thrusted me off of the seat.
No, for real?
Right. So he he saw that and he said, "Hey, what would be a cool idea? What if we could connect or send a signal from my microphone through the pedal to Caesar's seat if he ever messes up or if anything ever happens?" And you know what? He did it. He
How
actually made it happen.
how did he do that? I don't even understand that.
He actually made it happen. I don't know how, but he doesn't use it.
Okay.
But
But if he were to use it,
listen.
what would it do exactly? What would this
So again, like I said, it's like a subwoofer. So it when I hit the bass drum, it gives me a little,
Okay. So
on the bone.
he got in on that action.
Right.
He can
So
send you out of your seat if he
oh
wants.
gosh. Yes. And he got a kick out of that.
That is amazing.
Those are the games that we play with each other. you know. So it's really, really, really cool.
And
Really
nobody in the audience knows, just the two of you.
It's the two of us. And then if you notice, if you look at some of the performances, when you look at me and I look at him and I laugh, it's because he's done something like that.
That's
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing, I have to
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
You told that story, I was like, "What? What on earth?"
yeah. He loves that. He loves doing stuff like
That's hilarious.
that.
Well, you gotta keep yourself entertained after it's been about 45 years, so well,
Absolutely, absolutely. And they are
actually
like
more than 45 years. 45 years with Pat,
46.
and then he
Yeah.
had Rick Derringer before that. That's
Oh
hilarious.
yeah. Yes.
That's hilarious. All right, Caesar. So I want to learn about your early days and how you got to be this incredible drummer. You told me a really sweet story, a really interesting story about childhood.
Mhm.
And I believe you said you were at a parade or some sort of outdoor event where there was drums and other music.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So, and again, these are, you know, stories coming from my family and mostly my sister, because at the time, you know, she's 15 years older than I am, and so she take me to like the local parades in town, and because she loved to go and you know have a good time and stuff like that, and here's her little brother that's coming along, and everything will be great. Like I love going, you know, even to this day, I love amusement parks. I love, you know, I'm a big kid at heart. So, but we would go to the parades, and everything would be good until
Hmm.
the drums started. If I heard the drums, and it's like she said, the closer they got, the louder I would scream. To the point, and you know, you think, okay, he'll get over it. The drums will pass, and you know we'll be able to enjoy the day. Never happened, she said. When the drums came, that was it. And when they got closer, she tried to even stay longer to make it happen. I would just scream uncontrollably, and that's the end of the day. End of story. We have to leave. So for me to be, you know, for drums to be like my career, that's my thing. I just thought, wow, that is super incredible. Like there's really something to that because I've not gone to school, you know, for drums or anything like that. So it is really, really a gift, you know, and for that story to be a part of that is just it's an amazing thing, you know, for me, you know.
It really is. Do you have any memories of that? You mentioned that your family had shared this with you, but do you have any sort of remembrance of these moments?
Um when they tell the story, I can kind of see it.
Hmm.
Um but as far as like, you know, to see it like, you know, like vividly like that, probably not, you know, which in itself is just incredible, you know,
Yeah.
but everyone, you know, like bears witness to it. You know,
That's incredible.
yeah.
So, were you, how old were you during those? Was it like 4 or 5, 3, like
Probably, yeah, I would say
that
more or
area?
less like 3, you know, because, you know, yeah, it was really, really young age, really young.
So,
Yeah.
when did you start playing the drums, and what got you there? What inspired you to start playing initially?
So my dad was a musician. He was a guitar player. And I would see them rehearsing in the den area and stuff like that, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, by this time I'm probably 5 or I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. Um, and my mom at the time she worked at a dry cleaners, so I would see you know my dad's band doing their thing and blah 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 yada yada yada. And one day I got a hold to, you know, those hangers that's got the pants hangers. That's
Paper on. Yeah, yeah,
so the pants hangers came with like a little I don't know, like a cardboard kind of thing rolled up almost like a drumstick.
yeah. Oh,
And
the old school ones always had that.
old
They
school,
still do. Yeah.
old school. And I would take those off the hangers and I would break them apart, you know, to make little drumsticks. And there I go. I'm beating on the tables, I'm beating on the pots and pans, I'm beating on you name it. Now, needless to say, I got in trouble for it. But it was worth it. You know, I had fun. And that's when my dad saw that I had an interest in it. Now trust me, of course he wanted me to play guitar.
Of course.
So I had the guitar lessons, wanted me to play piano, I had the piano lessons. And that did none of it didn't stick,
Mhm.
you know. And the drums, you know, it stuck. I think the first drum set I got was from probably like a store, like it wasn't Walmart at that time. We didn't have a Walmart at that time, but it was kind of like Walmart's like
Okay.
the little paper, you know, drum set. And he actually saw that because again, there was no schooling for it at this time. Um, he actually saw that I kind of had a natural thing for just playing. And for like maybe a year or so, he put me into private lessons. And you know, out of everything that I don't remember, I do remember Kinsale Music School back
Mhm.
in the day, that was the one and only school for drums that I had ever gone to. And it was just very basic, and it got me on my way, you
Got you.
know.
What
Yeah.
area did you grow up in, Caesar?
Well, I was born and raised in Miami.
Oh, so it's the
So
same area you're in now.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually got everything started. And then, as I got older, MTV happened.
Mhm.
And then I started becoming influenced by so many, drummers at the time. And that's why like drummers like Neil Peart, you know,
Mhm.
th- and what, of course, his drumming ability, but of course, for me as a young musician, just I was just floored by how many cymbals he had. I was just like,
Right. The
all
kit,
the cymbals.
the drum horn.
Yes, so Neil Peart and and Stuart Copeland, was like just, oh God, you know what I mean? And then of course as I got older and started taking music more seriously, then of course you have Dave Weckl, who that's where I get like using the smaller toms. At the time I think he was using a 10-inch, whatever. So I had to have a 10-inch drums, the tom on all of my kids, and it's just so these drummers begin to influence, my playing style, and of course getting more into coming out of gospel music, which was my foundation, um, and getting into more like an R&B kind of situation. Of course, then Dennis Chambers played a very very big part, in I guess my playing and just influencing me in that way. And from there, it just kind of graduated, and I would hear different drummers, different styles I would love, and incorporate it into, I guess, my own, so
Mhm.
to speak. Because again, like I said, there was no official drum, you know, drumming school, or any studies or anything like that. So by the way, hey, if there are any kids, if you're watching, you can do it. I would encourage you going to school, but you don't have to think that that's the only way to make it. You know what I mean? So I am that poster child, being here in this place in my life, which is again unbelievable, you know, um, with very little schooling background or anything like that as far as with drums is concerned. So there you have it.
I love it. What did your dad gravitate to any particular style of music, or did he play all genres?
I would say it was more gospel based, and blues, like the John Lee Hooker, and the like kind of Chuck Berry, and more or less that kind of thing, or whatever, at least as far as what I remember.
Right.
But definitely gospel background,
Okay. And then
gospel.
was he a touring drummer, or did he play like in the studio stuff, or was he more local?
So he was a guitar player, and just local. No,
Local.
no, 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 nothing touring wise or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then did you get to go see him play a lot, or were these like grown up venues where you just
growing
wouldn't?
up venues. I may have seen him play maybe a few times in church, or something like that, but I always saw the rehearsals because it was at
Right.
our house.
You
you
trying to
know,
get on that kit before you had your own?
um, not really, because I wasn't really allowed to like touch,
Right.
the instruments and stuff like that. But I was able to watch, from afar, because the living room wasn't, attached to the den. So I was supposed to
We're
stay in the
like,
living room. Yeah, exactly. One of those things of just peeping in and just kind of seeing what's going on and hearing the music and being influenced in that way, you know. So
so when you
yeah.
playing, were you in local bands? Were you what did how did you get yourself from playing your drum kit for yourself to starting to build your career?
Another interesting story. So again, beating on the pots and pans at home. So we started there. Uh, and I think the very first time that I got on a drum set ever to play outside of my house,
Mm.
um, I didn't know how to set the drum set up, right?
Okay.
uh, and I was playing at a church for a local gospel group in town, and their drummer was left-handed,
Mhm.
and I'm right-handed, but I didn't know that. I didn't. So I was asked to come and play, or whatever, and I was like, okay, this kid, and the drum set I'm not set up playing this way; it's this way,
Oh,
and
everything's backwards.
listen, I was wondering why doesn't this feel right? you know, that was probably the one time that I played left-handed and didn't know that I could, but I was
Oh,
like,
okay,
well,
so
this is
it worked
harder than
out.
well, this is harder than I thought, But after that, I learned, okay, well, it wasn't set up right for me. I'm right-handed, and then from there, I of course played more and more in church, more and more for a lot of local gospel groups, and then
Mhm.
I think the first time that I played out R&B, I had always gone, as getting older in my teen years, and then of course, becoming an adult. Um, I would go and hear different bands and stuff like that play, and I was asked if I would be interested in being a part of a band that was kind of like a house gig, a house situation. And I was like, oh, that's great. You know, um, money wise, I don't have to take down and set up, drum stay and, whatever. And I think that's where it started for me learning different genres of music. Um, and they would have rehearsals on Tuesdays at the club, and just learning all of this material, back to back to play 5 nights a week, whatever, just religiously, whatever came out, top 40, and that like kick started everything, for me. And then I went kind of like on a college tour with an artist. He was doing a lot of cover tunes, so he wasn't like an established artist, but it was an experience for me because that was, I think, my first taste of being on the road or traveling and doing this, like that. And then after that, my first real recording artist that I went out on tour with was pop R&B artist. Her name was Blue Cantrell, and she was on
I
Aerosmith.
remember that name. I
Yeah,
remember
hit
that
'em up
name.
style. Yep. And so that was my very, very first tour, very, very first time playing on TV. 106 in Park, and and Jay Leno, and
Oh,
things
so
of
you
that
had
nature.
like so many big moments on that tour.
Yes, yes, that was my first, taste of that. You
How
know,
old were you on that first
so
tour?
so that had to be 2000. I want to say 2001, 2002, because her album had just released. So 30 something. So that was my first, run. And then shortly after that, because uh, that was in 2000, like I said, one or two. Josh Stone happened August of 2004.
Okay.
And that was just incredible. My first show, very first show with her, huge artist at the time, and still is, was VH1 with Maroon 5.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you've had some major gigs.
Yes,
Wow.
so that was like I was like thrown completely in the fire. We had like maybe a week or so of rehearsals, and it was like hit the road. It's tour time. Let's go. First show, national television, VH1. Doesn't matter if you're ready. Let's go.
Okay, let's just do it.
you
And
know.
then Caesar, how old were you you said that very first gig, the first time you played drums outside your house? How old were you
Um,
for that?
I let's see.
Teen years?
No, it was before that. Well, let's see, because I was with my mom. So I wasn't driving or anything like that.
Okay.
So it had,
So it
so
had to
I,
be
yeah,
before 16.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely before that. Because by the time I was like 16 or 17, I was driving. I shouldn't have been, but I was driving, and I was going, to gospel gigs, things that were affiliated in church, but I was able to kind of take myself or hang out with the other people, other guys or whatever, and not so much dependent on my parents taking me, And this one gig that I did where I had to play left-handed, I was definitely with my mom, you know, at that. So yeah, it had to be somewhere, I couldn't have even been 10. I don't think I was even 10.
Okay, so you were really quite young for that.
Yeah. Mhm.
No wonder you didn't know.
Right. Like something's off with this.
It's wrong. Right, but it's wrong. Um, Caesar, from the time that, let's say, it started to get serious, right?
Mhm.
Um, to when you did like your first, you started doing your first big gigs and the Lenos and all that stuff. Did it
Mhm.
feel like your work was pretty consistent as a musician? Not necessarily all big gigs, but did you feel it was consistent, or did you find that you had to fill in with a lot of other kind of like day job stuff?
I would say, uh, even at that time, well, I will say when I first started with Blue Cantrell, being that was like the first like big thing, I was like, oh, so this is what it's like,
Okay.
because up until then I had done, the club dates and the, filling in with, whatever, because you have to work, bills keep coming in. And, but right, but with the Blue Cantrell thing, that was like the first, I think that my first touring experience where there was a salary,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like, oh, you get paid this per show, or, you get, whatever. So I was like, this is tour, you know. So I think that was probably the first time where I felt that I could probably make a career out of this, but of course you get older and you do know, unless you're on a retainer, once the tour ends, the bills don't stop. you know so you have to continue to to do your gigs and stuff like that. And I've been blessed to link up with a very uh and a really amazing band back at home locally, who do a lot of corporate parties, a lot of corporate weddings and things of that nature. So when I'm not out on the road, I'm not touring or whatever the case may be, and I go home, I've been fortunate enough to be with them, and they understand, that I am a touring musician or whatever the case may be. And when I come home, I jump back in, like I never left. So financially, it's a blessing. I can, something I can count on when I'm at home. Um, but I would say this year, well, from last year to this year, is probably the most that I've spent like out on the road touring since Joss. Joss was more of a worldwide touring situation, being that she is from London, well, England, actually Dublin, and so a lot of her dates were European dates, stuff like that, and of course she did a few dates, in the United States or whatever. So you know doing that kind of hop, you know kept me pretty busy, throughout the year. Um, but with Taylor, and especially when I first started with Taylor, um, I wasn't like the sole drummer. because like I said, she had an East Coast band, she had a West Coast band. So any of those dates that fell in the region that I was in, then of course I had those dates, but it wasn't enough to sustain me like, throughout the year. So I did have to fill it in with different things and, do stuff like that. But uh, a couple of years in, and she decided that she wanted to make me, like her full-time drummer, then of course, you know, more dates, were affiliated with her. And I still had to fill in, some dates and stuff like that. But now with the Pat, dates, and then now, because when I first came in with Pat, I came in at the end of their 2024 run. So
Mhm.
I started with them in July
Okay.
of last year, and went throughout what they had considered to be the end of their run in 2024, which ended, I believe, July, August, September. Yes, like the end of September. Um, so this is the first time that I've been with Pat from the, like
Beginning.
an entire year's run,
Yeah.
and now you incorporate that with the Taylor dates, then it's like, wow, like I'm really out a lot, and it's great. And again, like I said, having that support back at home with the band that I work with, Remix, is the name of the band, um, and being able to, stay working when I'm home is just it really is a blessing, and I'm very fortunate, that I do have something when I'm not on the road to be able to get back into once I'm home. So yeah, yep.
Um, you have a really major moment coming up for you in a few months, which I'm very excited for you. And I know there's a countdown going for when we get there. So I think every musician probably has that gig or that venue that they really, really want. Tell us what yours is and when it's going to happen.
Whew, okay, so it plays well into everything that we've talked about as far as how I got into it, and as a kid, watching and looking and having googly eyes over musicians and just the whole music industry itself, and from a drummer's perspective as well. um my influences, musically, of course, came from, watching TV and seeing, different bands and artists and stuff like that. And one artist that I love, Michael Jackson, I love Janet Jackson, and Janet Jackson, because of what I'm about to say. She did a show, and one of my good friends, amazing drummer, um, was playing, with her, Lil John Roberts. And this show was at Madison Square Garden, right? And I was just looking, I was like, wow. I was like, oh my God, what it would be like to one day be able to play at Madison Square Garden, And I had seen other musicians and other artists, Justin Timberlake and people like that, that because I love artists, like that gives you both spectrums, great music and also an amazing show overall, And I would see these artists and I'd be like, and of course that big date seemingly from my perspective would be Madison Square Garden, right? And I'm like, gosh, what is it like to play that place? And I'm like, if I could ever play that place, like I don't know what I would do. So we get these dates, with the Bryan Adams thing that's coming up. And I'm like, oh, that in itself, that's amazing because I love Bryan Adams. Um, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I saw, when the dates first came down, they didn't have where it, like the venues, it just had where, right? Okay, so cool. My hometown, gonna be there, gonna be there, gonna be there. And I saw New York. I'm like, okay. So I went to Brian's page, and on his page, he has where they're going to be. And I'm scrolling, looking at all these great places. Oh man, the Hard Rock, all the Forum in LA, blah, blah, blah. And I get to New York and it says Madison Square Garden. I said, wait a minute, that can't be right. Sure enough, I am playing Madison Square Garden, MSG, the Garden,
That's
October
amazing.
30th.
Nice.
I am, listen, I can't tell you how how I feel because it just, when I look back and everything. By the way, this is the first time that I've ever really been interviewed about my history of playing.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
wonderful. I'm really honored. I'm really
oh God, no, I'm honored. Thank you. And just telling the story and hearing it back for myself for the first time is it really has been a journey. And when I look back at wanting to, one day play Madison Square Garden, and with all experiences that I just shared with you, and here it is, it's just everything for me. I really seriously get so emotional, um, even when I think about it. I haven't shared it with any of my, like, Facebook friends or anything like that yet. I'm gonna, because I
We're
want
about
it.
to announce it, I think. I think by the time this comes out, everybody will know.
and,
But
and I
wow,
wanted and I wanted to share it here first. I wanted
that's
to
amazing.
say it here first. And it's just my words are not doing it any justice with what I feel on the inside to know that, and it might not even be really that big of a deal to anyone else, but for me, and my journey, you know, my personal journey to have made it there, and it's going to happen. If God spares my life, I am going to be at Madison Square Garden, October 30th, and I had already said, I'm going to listen. My phone is going to explode because of so many pictures and video and stuff like that I intend to take of that day, because it means so much to me than just playing there. It's everything for me, so yeah, MSG.
I'm so excited for you. I love that you've had all these incredible moments, but like that's the moment, the
Yeah.
defining moment for you. I think that's incredible. So let the countdown begin.
Yes. Yes.
And I know you're ready. I know you can't. I know you can't wait for that day.
I
It's
can't
pretty
wait.
amazing.
Mhm.
So aside from Madison Square Garden, which is pretty amazing, and I think a lot of musicians probably have Madison Square Garden uh, or a similar venue as their moment. What are other things that you would love to do in your career? Are there any artists that you would love to play with or record with in the studio? What's on your wish list?
The one artist that I really wished I had the opportunity to work with, they're no longer here with us, um, was Michael Jackson. I think I know all of his tours from top to bottom.
Oh, really?
The intros, the outros, the little ins and outs, the nicks, the nads. Because if I'd say an artist and not just a drummer or whatever influenced me in my style of playing, I'd have to say Michael Jackson, because of just the overall artistry that I felt he had on stage, and I again, it's very far out there for me, but in my heart, I really wish that I had an opportunity, to play with him. So even locally, when because they have quite a bit of impersonators and stuff like that, and I've out in Vegas there was one that was really amazing, and I went to the show and I was like, what I wouldn't give to like be up there on the drums because that would be like my moment, that the only moment that I would be able to have with a Michael Jackson experience per
Right.
se, in this time. And that's how I know that that desire is so true to me because I know that's not really Michael Jackson, but the show itself was so good and he was so good at it. And I just saw myself. I could see me playing, you know, for that. But Michael Jackson will probably be what Madison Square Garden is to me as far as venues are concerned. Yeah,
It's incredible. So, you have a lot going on, as I mentioned before. Spring tour with Benatar and Giraldo with the Vindies opening.
yes,
You have the dates with Taylor Dayne coming up as well, and then
yes,
after that, the fall tour with Bryan Adams and Benatar-Giraldo. You get, and then of course Madison Square Garden, which is the pinnacle of it all. So
yes.
I'm excited for you, and the next time you come on, you'll have to tell us what Madison Square Garden was like and share some of those pictures and
I would
videos.
love to. I would love to for sure.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be your first full-length interview. And I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to share it with everybody. And then we'll definitely have you on again after you have your big moment.
Thank you. I'd be honored. Thank you so much. Thank you.